What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about It Ends With Us. Directed by Justin Baldoni, who also stars in this film alongside Blake Lively, Jenny Slate, and Brandon Sklenar. This film is based on a novel written by Colleen Hoover. So while her husband is seeing massive success at the theaters right now with Deadpool and Wolverine, Blake Lively is now in theaters with her own films titled It Ends With Us, based on a novel by Colleen Hoover. This is not a book I'm familiar with, so just to start this off, if you are a fan of the book, I kind of want to open it up to you guys. Where is this film kind of different from the books? You know, did they completely honor the adaptation here? Or is this something where they completely did their own thing? Very curious to hear, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are fans of the book who are excited to check out this movie. Now, going into it, I had only seen the trailers, and one thing I was kind of bummed by with the trailers is that I felt like it showed way too much of this film. It felt like the whole movie was on display. And I will say that I think the trailers do kind of work against this film in a lot of ways. As somebody who was going into this simply as a film fan and somebody who wanted to see a narrative play out, it did feel in a lot of ways like I was kind of checking all the boxes in my mind as somebody who had seen this trailer multiple times over the course of the last few months of having gone to see other movies in theaters. So I felt like I pretty much knew what the foundation and the overall bare bones of this film was going to be, and it kind of lacked a lot of surprise. But that's okay a lot of times when you can at least have a film that, you know, has execution that really lands. And what I could say about this film right out of the gate is I think that this is a film that a lot of people are instantly going to label as a chick flick. And while it does definitely have conventional and cliche chick flick elements to it, I think there is an element about this film that gives it more weight, and I think the performances do a lot to really help that. The base premise here of this movie is that we focus on the character of Lily Bloom, whose full name is Lily Blossom Bloom. She's about to open up a flower shop. Yes, Lily Blossom Bloom is going to be opening up a flower shop. She's played by Blake Lively and ends up building a relationship with a man named Ryle, played by the director of this film, Justin Baldoni. The two of them build this very sexual and beautiful and very cutesy relationship at the beginning of the film, only for eventually this to kind of start to lead to the relationship becoming more and more sour and flat out abusive. Amidst all of this going on, she's reintroduced to an old fling from her high school days, played by Brandon Sklenar, the character of Atlas. And as the movie plays out, you have abuse in her main relationship while she finds herself in a bit of a love triangle, questioning whether or not she should be with Atlas. And you can see all of this in the trailers, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before. I think the movie's trailer gave a little bit too much away, because as you're watching the first portion of this film and you kind of need to buy into this romance between her and Ryle, it felt like I just was expecting it to go wrong the entire time, and I would have rather have known that this was more of a, you know, love triangle kind of story and see where things unfold as time goes on, instead of knowing about the abuse element based on all of the marketing of this film. I do feel like the marketing could have done a little bit better to kind of just paint this as a straight up love triangle, or maybe there's some issues in the relationship, more so than really showcasing what this film is altogether, because it did kind of remove the surprise and made a lot of this film feel very conventional and cliche. That's not to say that the film doesn't land on its 2 feet when it comes down to its overall messaging, though, because this is a film that at its core is about the abuse elements and the cyclical nature of it. The effects it can have not only on the people that are part of the abuse, but the people that are in their lives who are also watching this abuse happen, most notably kids watching their parents be in an abusive relationship, and how that continues to kind of create a cycle of abuse. And I think in a lot of ways, Blake Lively and the rest of the cast do an incredible job of really conveying that message when it comes down to the film. I think if you're somebody who's dealt with abuse in your personal life, or have been privy to somebody in your life who has been abused, I think there's definitely going to be some triggering elements when it comes down to watching this film. But unfortunately, again, because of the fact that the film was marketed with so much of that, a lot of the first part of the film does feel like a cliche, very straightforward, romance-heavy chick flick. And I don't mind that. I can appreciate a good romance film. I can appreciate a good chick flick. I'm always open to any kind of movie. But I do think the first part of the film feels at times a little bit too much about the sex appeal and building this romantic relationship, that I feel like the marketing just really sets you up to know it's just not going to go anywhere good. So I found myself just struggling to really buy into that first portion of the film, simply because everything has just already been telegraphed for me as far as where it's going to go. But I do think the performances are solid there. I think there's a lot of great chemistry, especially in the early portion of the film, between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And one of my favorite characters in the whole mix here is the third wheel in the whole mix, Atlas, this previous love interest of Blake Lively's character, played by Brandon Sklenar. And I think that he does a really great job here, being one of the most charming and likable characters in the film, as you would come to expect based on the way that this film was marketed. Outside of him, though, there is a lot of charm and heart to this film, with a lot of that also coming from some of the other supporting actors in the film, like Jenny Slate, who ends up being an individual named Alyssa, who works alongside Blake Lively's character in her flower shop, and is actually the sister to the love interest Ryle, played by Justin Baldoni. She kind of plays an interesting counterweight in the mix as she builds this really great bond and friendship with Blake Lively's character, but also, of course, is the sister to the abuser in the film, and her role as a woman alongside Blake Lively, despite having this sibling relationship with the main, and lover and antagonist in the film, is an interesting dynamic. And I think that Jenny Slate does a lot of really great acting here to really add to a lot of these sequences with her and Blake Lively's character. Outside of the themes of abuse and different things like that, I think that the film also had a nice charm to it that oftentimes found itself being kind of funny, and I'm kind of glad that I got to see this film not only at an early press screening that had press and critics and people who were there to talk about the film on a more critical level like myself, but it was also open to the public, and they were able to jam-pack the theater with majority women. So I actually got to see this movie with a crowd that was, I want to say, like 80-something% women. If it wasn't women that were all there for like a girls' night, it was, women bringing their husband for a date night kind of thing. And so I got to kind of experience the oohs, the ahs, and the reactions of the women in the audience. And it reminded me a lot of going to see something like, 50 Shades of Grey back in the day, where there was a lot of oohing and ahhing at the sexy scenes and a lot of loud, very audible gasp at some of the more dramatic scenes. And so it was clear to me as a 31-year-old dude that, watching this movie, I was not the target demographic. I've not read the book, and just the overall film for me just wasn't necessarily made for somebody like me. But there was an audience around me who was soaking this movie up, and as soon as the credits started rolling, they started applauding. So I think that's really important when it comes down to talking about films on a critical level, being able to recognize that, here's all the elements of the film, here's my thoughts on it, here are the technical elements I think that are solid. It's well shot, it's well acted, it's got all the elements you want in a film, in terms of sound design and all those things. But how does it kind of hit you subjectively? And for me, again, I do think the marketing kind of worked against me, because my brain is kind of wired in a way where I want surprise, I want excitement, but I can also recognize that I think that the film was executed well and does get its themes across well, and getting the chance to sit in a theater packed with people who really are enjoying it, that are, far more of the demographic. This was a chick flick in a lot of ways. I can totally understand how this is going to be a film that people are going to love, and I can totally see that there's going to be a percentage of the audience that maybe finds this film to be a bit of a snooze fest. Whatever the case may be, though, I'm looking forward to hearing the various opinions on this film. Again, I do think this film has a lot of merits, and it comes down really to the way it tackles the subject matter of abuse and how its cast is able to bring a lot of these scenes to life. But I do think there's a lot when it comes down to the way that the film is structured, when it comes down to a lot of the time gaps between sequences in this film, and the way that the marketing kind of showcased this film that kind of took away from elements for me. But I look forward to hearing all of your guys' thoughts. Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below and let me know. But yeah, overall, when it comes down to my recommendation, I think it's really going to be dependent on your personal taste. If you see the trailer and you just feel like it's not for you, seems like something that's going to be overly cliche and not up your alley, you're probably going to feel that way after you see the film. I don't think this is a film where I could be like, hey, the marketing wasn't great, but you'll be absolutely surprised by how solid and different the movie is than the marketing. The movie is marketed and shows you exactly what this movie is, and if you're okay with that and it seems like something that's up your alley, then you'll likely enjoy it. But if you've seen the trailers and you feel like it's cliche and it's just something that you've already seen before, then you probably will feel the same way when you walk out of the theater. So that's my thoughts. Looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts. Leave those comments down below. Hit the like button, subscribe for more early movie reviews like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.